Hi, good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending today's session. Today's webinar is with uh, Srishti Manipal School of Institute of Art, Design, and Technology, Bangalore. We're so happy all of you have made it here. There's a lot of you who've attended this. So we're really happy that you've come here. And we're happy to have Professor Michael Joseph, who is the Dean of the Undergraduate Technical Program. Professor Joseph, thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So before we start off, I would like to just confirm with everybody, can you hear me clearly? Can you hear Professor Michael clearly? If you can, please type in the small chat box. We're seeing questions. Yes, one second. Um, Hold on. So, Professor, I've made you an organizer so you can see the questions as well. Right. So I'm getting a few yeses. So I'm guessing that all of you can hear me. And perfect. So super. So it's 6:17 now, and I think we can start off with the session. All right. So Professor, can I make you a presenter?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes. Media presenter.
Yeah. So, a very good evening to everyone. And I hope you're all keeping safe and behaving yourselves at home. Uh, it's probably the longest time you've been forcibly made to sit at home, but I'm discovering new things staying at home. Things that one took for granted, which suddenly make new meaning, and suddenly the value of certain things becomes so apparent in a situation like this. Okay, so basically, I look after the undergraduate technical program, which I will explain more in detail. Because at Srishti, we have two undergraduate programs. One is called the professional undergraduate program, and the other is the technical program. And I look after the technical program, and I'm also uh, on different sort of committees and things like that. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm from the Pune Institute, way back 35 years back, and for the last 15, 20 years I've been teaching at Srishti, and we've come a very long way. In over these 20 years, we have from just 4 or 5 courses, we have now expanded to many more, maybe about 25 or so in the undergraduate space. We have added on a postgraduate space. We also have a doctoral studies. Uh, so it's been a huge journey over these 20 years, from just 10, 15 faculty to today. Now we have around 175 faculty who are teaching with us at Srishti at different levels. Uh, I think a lot of you must have already heard, and we just recently, about I would say maybe uh, a week or no, maybe about a month back, we have sort of got into we have become a constituent. Um, so, can I? Are you seeing my screen or?
Not yet. You need to share your screen. Just a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. So, just about a month or so back, we have got into uh, being part of a larger body of the Manipal Academy of Higher Education, called MAHI, and that's why our name now is Srishti Manipal Institute of Art, Design and Technology, which as you all know, Manipal is a very huge university, a deemed to be university, and is recognized as an institute of excellence. And now I think, as the screen says, after 2 decades of growing, evolving, what I started off telling you about, it's come to a point where we need to sort of settle down and consolidate. And I think we have found the right partner in terms of the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Now, this in no way means that we are going to change. The faculty at Srishti will be the same. Uh, the courses that we are running are going to be the same. And the way that we teach is also going to be the same. But our association as a constituent uh, uh, body with Mahi will help us in, creating a space that would give us much more scope in terms of opportunities and getting into university global networks and uh, building a world-class infrastructure. So, as a student or as a parent who is listening today at this to this webinar, uh, I think there would be two things that you would like to know. The first being, uh, how are we organized? So, if I just quickly take you to the the different programs, or maybe this would be a better thing. So, if you can see these small colored boxes on top, these show us the different types of programs. So, programs are at different levels. There is an undergraduate level, which are these two. There is a postgraduate level, which are these three. And then there is a doctoral level, which are the last two in purple. Now, under each program, there are different courses. So if I take, say, the undergraduate technical program, and I go into that, basically we are offering a number of courses. As you can see there, we have a course on creative coding, on creative manufacturing, on digital filmmaking, digital media production, graphic arts and design practices, interior design and build, and user interface and interaction engineering. Similarly, if you go to the professional program, you would be able to see the different courses. So, first of all, there is levels, which is um, the level could be undergraduate, postgraduate, or doctoral. Under each level, there are different programs. So there is an undergraduate professional program and an undergraduate technical program. These are some of the courses of the undergraduate professional program. So I suppose the next question would be, uh, what what would be the difference between these two undergraduate programs? I think we have a poll sort of ready for you, and we were inquisitive, Dion and myself, in the morning when we were testing. We were inquisitive to know how many people have already applied to Srishti and how many plan to, or how many plan to take a decision a little later on, and for which courses they were applying. So maybe, Dion, we could put out that poll so that we could start
Sure,
getting some data in.
sure. So I'm going to launch this, which is have you applied to Srishti in the first place?
Okay.
Um, so we'll keep this out for another maybe 10 seconds.
Okay, so that so that's about over 70% who say they've already applied. And
Yes,
okay, great.
and
So
as of now, only about 60% of everyone here has voted. So
okay,
I'll close this anyway.
yeah, let's close that. We could carry on with the thing.
All right.
So what um, what is the difference between the 3-year program and the 4-year program? Uh, well, obviously, one is 3 years and the other is four. Apart from that, why do we call it a technical program? The 3-year program is a technical program, and we call it the technical program because traditionally in India, when you say that a course is a technical course, one is usually talking of engineering, or at another level of technical courses, usually there were the ITIs and the polytechnics. But what we offer at Srishti is neither of these actually. And the 3-year technical program at Srishti is rooted in what we call a work-based learning approach, where a part of your learning actually happens within the real world workspaces. You know, about 30% happen. Uh, 30% of your curriculum happens in actual workspaces, in actual companies across India, where you would be either going to visit in an industry exposure, or you would be going to apprentice with a master designer or artisan, or where you would uh, be doing your final capstone project. Apart from going out, we also try to invite industry into the academy. So, if I take a few steps back and try to, try to uh, clarify for you why we have taken this approach, is it has basically come about because of a certain disconnect between higher education and what the workplace demands. Most companies today who take in even a trained person who has done a formal education still spends about 6 months retraining them. And this lacunae, or this disconnect between the academy and the workspace, which is finally where you are going to transit into as students, you will become creative practitioners. So if there is a disconnect between what academy is producing and what industry needs, then there is a misfit. So the 3-year program addresses this, and one way of trying to solve this misfit is by having a dialogue with industry and trying to understand what industry wants, and industry also understanding what is the possible approaches we can take within the learning academy to make people work ready. you know so at the core of the 3-year program is this notion of trying to find and train students for the actual world outside, whether it is with the media and entertainment industries sector skill council, where there is filmmaking, or there is animation or VFX, or whether it is for coding, of using coding in a more creative way, not just for IT purposes. And as you know, coding today has become, it has become something that one nearly every designer needs to have some understanding of coding, because the artifacts and the products that are being created are demanding that, because there is an increasing amount of interaction within our lives. Within there is so much interconnections. You know if I do something on my phone, when I come to my computer, uh, you know that thread is still coming into my thing. So devices are getting interconnected. So phenomenon like the the Internet of Things, all call for an understanding of coding, which traditionally coding was just thought of as a very mathematical thing. But there is a very creative application of coding or of user interface or of trying to look at industries that, like if we look at our craft industry, there is a huge amount of indigenous knowledge there, which we have to reinvent and reposition. Whether it is the crafts in wood or textile, India is very rich with that. So, a particular course in the 3-year program called the Creative Manufacturing course uh, is a course that tries to address, uh, you know, those sort of um issues of trying to understand the craft tradition and the indigenous traditions, and in and try to rework it, try to inculcate a sense of entrepreneurship, and try to reposition that in a modern economy. Okay, so the 3-year course and the 4-year course are different. The 3-year course is what I described it to be, and the 4-year course is a little different. It uh, first of all, it it moves into a certain interdisciplinarity. So if you're uh, if if you're you could join in for a particular course. The 4-year course, the first year is what we call a foundation year, which is discipline agnostic but tries to look holistically at art and design. Of course, when you apply, you do apply for a particular course. But in the second, third, and fourth years, you choose certain core credits within your course of which you have chosen, but you're also allowed to navigate. So the curriculum is a very navigational sort of curriculum where the learner is able to pick and choose. So you might be a student of animation, but you might do a studio in textile and then probably apply that understanding as puppets in your animation film. So the interconnectedness and the interdisciplinarity or the transdisciplinarity nature of the course makes it very exploratory, and one one is trying to create professionals who would work in that space, because today the workspace is hardly ever, you know, insular in terms of one discipline. The workspace today, if I sit around a table on a project, there would be at least, you know, the people sitting around that table would probably come from 5 to 10 different disciplines, from urban planning, from architecture, from user interface, from coding, from filmmaking, from visual design. And together, they would work as a team. So this interdisciplinarity has become a very important way to engage with the world today, more so because of the complexity of the problems today. You know, and right now we are going through a huge crisis where it is not just health. If you look at the television, there is a whole campaign in terms of trying to uh, make people understand the information about it. Information is being uh, translated into different languages because the pandemic has, gone right across India. So it cannot be just in English. It has to be in Kannada. It has to be in, Jodhpuri or whatever, and these all call for design. Design has now permeated to be a very integral part of life. And in that, I would say that all of you who have chosen already, to come into this design space in whatever capacity, whether it is in terms of you being a product designer or a filmmaker or an animator or an interaction designer. Today, the what we call the creative economy has become a very substantial part of the economy. You know, if you look at certain countries, there have been certain studies in the UK where they have been able to see that a substantial amount of the GDP of a country is coming from the creative industries. So there is something called a creative economy, and there is something called creative capital. So in that sense, you're jumping into this space of art and design at a very opportune time, because there are a lot of opportunities and there is a huge demand for trained, skilled professionals in different aspects of design. So that sort of gives you a thing. Maybe I could just say a few things about the admission process. Okay. Um, so if we go, so we have 69% of people who have already applied. Uh, I, I don't know whether you have applied for the round that just was over, and you would have probably got your results yesterday. The results of the first round were announced. Um, you had done the test a week or two back, I think on the 16th and 17th, and then done a second test on the 19th. The next round is open. We are going to have 4 rounds this year because of the situation that we find ourselves in. And we have made the entrance exam a home based test. So you would be able to do the test sitting at home. There are basically two tests for the entrance exam, test one and test two. Test one runs over 2 days, and test and is a generic test. Um, Maybe I could, yeah. So if you see that there are two tests. Test one is a sort of an aptitude. Both are aptitude tests. SEAT stands for the SEAT from here, but it's a more generic test in the sense that test one is a test where everybody sits the same test irrespective of the cluster, the admission cluster that they are applying for. Whereas the second test is determined by uh, by the cluster. So so let me just give you an example. So say if we were to go to admissions and uh, we were to apply for uh, admissions for 220, and if we were, you know, um, let me just hide some things. Yeah, that's better. So there should be something where, you know, let me just find that 1 minute. Okay, so I can't seem to find it, but if you go to the admissions page, you will find that once you are into the admission process, if you download, you would basically need to download the the you know um, the the application. So say if you were to apply for creative coding, uh, you would get a button like this where you would apply for that, and then it would take you to the form, and then you would be able to fill in the form online uh, and submit it online, and there is a fee payment. And there are certain clusters. There are 5 clusters in which all the courses are arranged. So, say something like uh, communication design would have 3 or 4 courses. So, if you're applying for multiple courses within one cluster, then you sit for only one test two. Whereas if you apply across different clusters, then you would sit that many uh, tests as the clusters you have applied for. So basically, you know, everybody would go through this 14th and 15th cut test. You know, you would be given the paper in the morning and you would have to upload it by 15th in the evening. And then on these 2 days, 16th and 17th, you would get a schedule, and depending on which cluster you have applied for, you would have a 2-hour test for that particular cluster. And if you've applied for courses in more than one cluster, then you would uh, be sitting more than one test. Um, yeah, so basically, you you would download the application and you could apply online. It says the last acceptance for the hard copy. This is a little flexible usually because, I mean, depending on how things pan out, we would be like the last round, we didn't really insist on it to come in by that particular date, but uh, because there were no postal services and courier services, so we relaxed it. But so depending on the situation, that would happen. So, are there any questions, and could I answer specific questions?
Yes, there are a lot of questions.
Okay,
Uh, yeah, and a lot of them related to the admission process. So just one second, I'll just increase my volume.
yeah,
Um, right. Okay. So I'm going to ask you some of the questions that students have been asking.
okay,
Um, hold on. Um, so there's a question from Amisha. Okay, and
okay.
maybe a couple of others as well. The degrees that are giving, is it from Manipal University or is it, or how does that work? Is it
Yeah,
now that,
okay. So the the degrees that we are giving for people who are for students who are entering this year will be coming from Mahe Manipal. So it would be coming from the Manipal Academy of Higher Education, which is a deemed institution. Yeah, which is what
or
I showed you here. And they would be the awarding body. So we now, the university that we are going to be attached to from this year would be the Manipal University, or now it is called the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. I think before it was called the Manipal University, which is a deemed university, and uh, students this year will be admitted to the Srishti Manipal Institute of Art, Design and Technology. We were last year with Bangalore Central University, as all of you must be knowing. And from this year, students from this year will be under this the Mahe, the university with Manipal.
all right. And there's a question from Jagannathan S, who is saying, so will the campus shift to a new campus or will it remain where it is?
At the moment, in we are spread out in different campuses. Okay, so as you can see, um, uh, there is uh, there are many campuses in Yelahanka. So we have what's called an an N1. Then there is an N3, which is usually the the foundation studies is placed in N3, and then N4 is more where all the projects are, and N5 is another main campus, which is actually the administrative hub also. And now we have something called the N6, which is you know um, um, basically an atelier. An atelier is a studio. So the N6 is the latest campus that we have about 2 years back, which is basically a fabrication space and a making space. So we're looking at green screen studios, printing presses, wood workshops, metal workshops. Uh, so a lot of the making happens in N6. So whatever program that you uh, enroll for, you would be depending on what you are doing, you would be assigned to. So certain courses would happen in N6, and some courses might happen in N5. And then for your general studies, maybe you might be moving to N1. So you keep moving there. We would be working with the same campuses, in Yelahanka as before.
All right, all right. Um, just a second. Right. So there are a few more questions regarding the admission process.
Yeah.
Number one is a question from Sahana Kalur,
Okay.
who's asking, generally in each stream, how many students do you all take for each stream?
Uh, it would depend. There are, you know, in Bangalore University, it was 40 or 30, I think. Uh, but now in Manipal, I think the total would be within the undergraduate space about 300 across all the programs, and uh, in the technical program, we're looking at about 100, 150 or so. So there, there is no particular seal off in terms of number of things, but it would get sealed off because of the facilities that we have and the faculty that we have. So we need to manage it. So we just can't take as many as we want, but there is no fixed number as such in terms of uh, it being very specific.
All right, all right. Um, right. So just one second. Now I'm filtering the
So,
questions because it.
so another thing is that uh, in Srishti, you don't have a classroom where we just dump in 100 people. We, even though 20 years back we just had 25 students, today also, even though say in each year say in the professional program last year there would be about 300 students, but each classroom will be made up of only 25 to 30 max. So there would be at least 12 sections happening simultaneously. And if so, we try to ensure for most courses that this number does not go up unless it is a course which is like a general education course, or a very theory based, lecture based sort of course, which is very rare, very few, I would say. Then the numbers might be slightly more, but otherwise the classroom size usually is between 20 to 30.
All right, all right.
If there are more students, then see, especially in the professional program, because even though you might be, say, a visual communication student, there would be 2 or 3 courses that are offered which you would interest you. So, what you do and what I do, the courses that we both do, even though we come from the same class, might be different because I can choose which courses I want to do, and you can choose what you want to do. Of course, you need to choose a certain percentage which comes from your major, so to say, and then there are certain courses that will come from your minor, which are also specified. But by and large, the 4-year program is a very navigational program. So, you might be doing courses apart from your core disciplinary courses. Whereas the 3-year course is very focused, and it is very linear in the sense that if you have joined for visual effects, then from day one, your foundation, your introductory courses will be in visual effects, and all your courses will be, connected with visual effects from day one. So it's a much more focused 3-year course, which is not navigational and not interdisciplinary. It is very disciplinary in its approach. So if you know that you're going in for a particular, that you're very sort of sure that you want to do, say, coding, then you could approach that. This is not about the 3-year program or the 4-year program being better or worse. You know, it is basically looking at how different people learn. Certain people like to learn, very systematically, tuck, 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 tuck. Whereas other people might want to learn in a much more meandering, sort of serpentine sort of way. So, the 3-year technical program is something which is going very straight like that, and you're trying to reach certain levels of performance in a very short period, and those standards are set by industry. The 3-year program also works towards industry, but it's looking more in terms of people who can glide and interconnect between seemingly disparate things to, and bringing them together and creating new patterns. So the way of it suits different types of learners, basically. It's not that one is better or the worse. So really it depends upon your own disposition which of the undergraduate programs you enroll for.
All right, cool. There's another question from Amrita Arora, which says,
Okay.
if we do take admission in one course right now, will we be allowed to change it after the foundation?
uh, I don't think, uh, because we are enrolling you into the university as a student of visual communication and strategic branding, or we are enrolling you as a student of experience design. So then changing that in the university becomes a problem. When we were not aligned to a university, it was much more, uh, much more malleable, and we could move things around. But now, because, over the last 5 to 7 years, we have been with universities, and the university model is a little more stricter and a little more thing. So usually you apply for a particular program, you can apply for multiple programs, and then you might get into 2 or 3 of them, and then you can choose which one you want. But to change would be problematic.
All right. Um, okay. Now, there's another question here. Um, okay, so this question is about the industry connect that you'll have. A question from Shruti Ganesh. Okay.
Okay.
During the program, what is the level of industry connect that you'll have? Number one. Number two, a lot of times parents ask us about placements. I'm extending the question. Number one, the industry connect that you'll have during the program, and number two, after the program with regard to placements.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know which program you're talking of, because there are two, and both of them look at industry in very different ways. But as I explained earlier, the technical program is uh, very much involved with uh, industry immersions, I should say. Not only do we try to move the learner out into industry, or we also try to bring industry into the classroom. And even the projects mimic real design briefs that are given, which could be either simulated or we take on actual projects. Now, uh, so there is a huge element of the 3-year program that is related with industry. So just last semester, uh, my second years were, we have something called the apprenticeship, which is 12 weeks in industry, which is 3 months of your curriculum. Of course, it spills into the summer holidays also. But for that, across the 7 courses in the technical program, one had licensed with 30 to 40 industry partners in terms of apprenticeships, not the usual internships where you're just put in a corner and asked to do the odd jobs. But we were looking at redefining the notion of internship, and that's why we call it an apprentice. An apprentice comes traditionally from, in the West, it comes from the idea of the guild, that you would work with a master builder or you would work with a master designer. In India, we have the tradition of the Guru Shiksha, okay, which is a very traditional way of teaching that we have. Of course, the world has changed and these models were there at a certain historical time, but we are trying to understand what could be the essence of this relationship of a person in a real workspace with a student, you know, and we create these sort of immersions. In the 4-year program also, after the 3rd year, you have what's called a 6-week internship, where again, there are a number of industry partners who, there is a huge database of industry partners who have been taking interns from Srishti for years. So we have this huge database of people who we go to, and actually the student chooses where they want to go and they are guided by the tutor, and that way they immerse. So now a lot of people who go in for these internships or apprenticeships or the capstone project, which is the 3rd year final project in the 3-year program, where it is actually a real project in a real world space. It's not just a diploma project that you're doing, in the academy. It's actually going to an actual client, and there is a time period, and there are certain standards that have to be met. Okay, so these sort of immersions into industry allow the student to build their own networks, and that way they get connected. So I know lots of students who have done an internship or a capstone project, and they're actually already starting to work for them after they pass out. So that way we create a network of partnerships, but we are not into this placement business because we don't really believe that our students are cattle to be sold at a cattle market, you know. But we also understand that it is important that you get a job and that you are employed, and we definitely create environments for you to build connections over the 4 years that you're at Srishti or over the 3 years, so that your transition already you have these connects which you need to build on and decide where you want to go in, and decide which sort of a type of company you want to work with.
Okay. All right. All right. Um, right. So the next question
Yeah.
is from Omisha. Do you all have, suppose the lockdown ends soon, is there a chance they could come and you'll have an open day, or can they just drop into the campus on, days, certain days, just to come and have a look at the campus and interact with y'all?
I mean, definitely, if things clear up, we would open out. But I mean, we don't want to be another Nizamuddin. So, it's tricky. It is very unpredictable what is going to happen. Uh, of course, let's hope things clear up. As soon as things clear up, definitely we will be trying to, reach out to people by allowing them to come to visit and things. But at the moment, we've all been working from home. The last semester, the last 4 weeks of the last semester, we taught online. Um, we'll probably be doing the final exam for the second semester, for the even semester. That too, maybe we would be doing it online in maybe in the coming months. I don't know when things are going to clear up, when we will be able to, but definitely if they do, you would be very welcome to come visit, talk to uh, course leaders. And I would also ask you to go to the, um, so say if you go to the website and you go to thing, and say you go to, let's just take any course. So like, say if you take a course here, and let's say you take filmmaking, okay, and whichever course you choose or whichever course that you're interested in, please go down on the home page of that course, and there will be an enquiry, and there will be a email ID that you can write to. This is my email ID. I coordinate the film course also, apart from being the dean. And you could write to me, or you could write to any course leader, for any course that you go. If you go to digital media production, are you seeing my screen, or am I?
Yes, we're seeing your screen.
Yeah. So the coordinator for the digital media production, which is basically VFX and game design, is Sandeep. So you would get his email ID. You can write into him, ask him for a conversation. Everybody would definitely be uh, obliged. Would welcome answering your queries or further details about specifics of a particular course. At the moment, that seems to be probably the only way in which we can connect. But when people will be allowed to move around, and when we open the campus, because uh, you know any educational institute is a hub of many people who are uh, working in very close proximity, so we have to be very careful. But if things open out, you're really welcome to come in anytime. uh, but in the meantime, I would implore you uh, to go to the different courses, go to the website, go choose which sort of course, what course you would like to do, and then go into that particular course. So say if you were into businesses, services, and systems design, which is a 4-year course, which leads to a BDes, uh, then you would find at the end of that home page a contact. Here you are, Janak Mistry at Janak at Srishti Manipal Institute.in. So do write to Janak if you're interested in BSSD, and he would get back to you. You could even share your number and ask him to call if you want to have a conversation. And maybe we might be also trying to do a few webinars on particular courses. So I would keep in touch with Dion, and would be able to inform you when that happens, where you could, if you're interested in the, say, this particular course of branding strategy, then branding services, business services and system design, sorry, then you could just come in for that session, which would be much more focused for you to understand what you're getting into. Um, we were also inquisitive to find out what, how are there anybody from postgrad, can you just message in to Dion if you're
I
a postgrad?
I
Were you
will
able to
launch
find out?
the I will launch a poll to see what students are interested to apply for.
Okay.
Um, yeah, this is the poll question. If everyone can answer this, it would be good. Yeah. In the meantime, Professor Michael,
Tell me.
um, we have a WhatsApp group specifically for the students who are inclined towards Srishti, applying to Srishti, and all the
Okay.
updates are posted there. So
Okay.
if you do send me these messages of these webinars, I could just share it with the students whenever you'll have.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. It's something one has to organize given the circumstances that we find in. We had thought of it, but we've been really busy with the admissions, and but this is part of that. So definitely, and since we are going for many rounds,
Okay.
definitely because we have not really attended any fairs or visited any institutes. Yeah, that's why we're here tonight.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I'm going to close this poll. We've got this. Almost everyone here is looking at the UG 4-year program, right?
Okay.
Um, right. So the next question I have here, in fact, two questions. One from Omisha, which says, "How many times can one apply for the admission? So can they apply multiple times for admission number one? Question number one. Question
Hmm.
number two is from Dhriti Verma, which is, if I've qualified UCEED, do I need to answer the first test?
Okay. Uh, First of all, I just want to respond to the poll result. Very disappointed that none of you are considering the 3-year program. Uh, yeah, the 3-year program, which is a BWalk, a Bachelor of Vocation. The 4-year program is either a BDes or a BFA, a Bachelor of Fine Arts. Uh, Now, the BDes and the BFA have been there for a much longer time. That was the traditional course 25 years back, 20 years back that we started with. But do have a look at the technical program. There are some interesting disciplines being offered there, and it is a very different type of learning. It is a very different approach to teaching itself. Even for us as faculty, teaching the 3-year program is very different from teaching the 4-year program. Now, uh, this I mean, the result of this poll is in some ways a reflection of the notion of skill education in India. And as I said earlier, the technical courses in India were traditionally the ITIs and the polytechnics. And maybe if one looks at it historically, uh, it was important to establish these institutes because of the historical and the developmental sort of position we were in at that time after independence and in the 60s and 70s, where we were moving into an industrialized sort of society. But today, the notion of skill is very different from that. I think a lot of you might have watched a film called Modern Times, a Chaplin film, and there is this lovely sequence where he's on this conveyor belt, assembly line, and he has this spanner, and basically all he has to do is just tighten it twice, and then it moves to the next guy, and he does something else. Uh, Probably he didn't even know what he was building. So that was the way in which skill education was. Skill education was just to create a person who was highly technically skilled, and all that person needed to know was the spanner size, what spanner size to use, and which way to turn. But today, the notion of skill is much more complex. The notion of skill itself today entails an element of aesthetics. It entails an understanding of what type of technology platform that you will use. There are many other dimensions to skill education today, and that makes it interesting for Srishti to try and create a space of skill education which is more humane and not what it traditionally has been looked at, you know. So please do have a look at some of the uh, uh, web pages of the 3-year program, even though you think, as I said earlier, it is not about one being better than the other. It is about how you want to learn, okay? And each person learns in a particular way. I do a course today, and it's a it goes off so beautifully. Everybody is really happy and think. I do the same thing next year with the next batch, and it just doesn't work. That's because the learning atmosphere is different. The way people learn is different. So the two programs suit different types of learners, and you choose according to where you fit in. But because the 3-year program is a newer program, don't shy away from it. Just spend a moment and pause. Okay, coming to the two questions. How many times can a student appear for the entrance exam or for seat 220? Uh, in a given calendar year, you can apply once for one round. You can apply for as many courses as you want, but you can only apply in one round. After that, you cannot reapply. Okay? So that's the first question. The second question is regarding UCEED. And if you go to the admissions page, as I have now, you will see a Srishti selection protocol. And if you download the Srishti selection protocol for Indian nationals, okay, and it will give you information about the protocol. And see, an applicant may apply for more than one course or program. So you can apply for the technical program and the professional program, and you can apply for two courses in the technical program and another one in the professional program, but only in any one round in a given academic year. Okay, so that is the protocol. Now, in terms, these are what we talked about in terms of the admission clusters. Okay, so let's not look at the postgraduate. Is this for, is this the, uh, oh, sorry, this is the protocol for the PG. So let's click the one for the UG. Okay, same, almost the same, a little down. The same clause applies there. Okay, and these are the admission clusters. Okay, so you might be applying for creative manufacturing and public space design, and maybe industrial arts and design practice, 3 courses. But because all 3 are in cluster A, and they come up from 2 programs, industrial arts design and public space design comes from the professional program, the Bachelor of Design, and the creative manufacturing course comes from the 3-year technical program, Bachelor of Vocation. But because they are in the same cluster, admission cluster, you need to sit only one test 2. As I said, test 1 is common for everybody. There is no distinction depending on what you have applied for. In the second test, you will be bunched according to what you apply for. So if you have applied for film, then you would be in cluster D. Yeah. And you would sit the test 2 cluster D test at a particular given time for 2 hours. If you have applied for film and industrial arts and design practice, you would sit for the cluster A, test 2 at 10 to 11, and then maybe on the next day, you might be doing the next test for cluster D. Now, in terms of UCEED, this is the protocol for UCEED. Applicants who have taken UCEED 2020 examination not last year, not 2019 UCEED, 2020 UCEED, can choose to be exempt, can choose. You don't have to decide that you want to take the exemption. You can choose to be exempt from the test if your all India rank, your all India, not your, there are different types of ranking in UC. Your all India rank should be 1000 or below, then you will be exempt from test one if you choose to go by that. If not, you can sit the test one, even though you have done the UC, and decide which you want to do. So you have a choice. But yes, you are exempt from test one, sorry, if your ranking, your all India ranking is below 1000. Yeah.
Right. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Yes, thank you for that. Um, it's 7:15, so we've almost finished time, but we'll
Yeah.
just take a few more questions before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure.
one comment from Ahona Mukherjee. She's applied to both the 3-year and the 4-year course, so that's for you. Again,
Yeah.
that's a message for you. Uh, Sheetal Mandot as well. All right. But
Great.
um, yeah, a couple of other questions. Um, I think we'll answer some of these can be just answered quickly. So
Yeah.
hold on. What is the refund policy if a student decides to withdraw from the course?
Okay. So in that same admissions page on your left side, you will see the withdrawal and refund policy. Okay. So if you click on that, you will get the refund policy for either an NRI or a thing. Or even if you go to the admissions page and if you're going to say a course and you choose a course, sorry, um, yeah. So if you go here, uh, there will be fee details. Oh, I don't think it's the fee details will be here. The refund policy, you need to go to the admissions tab, and because it's not dependent on which course, there is just one refund policy for thing, and you just go to the withdrawal and refund policy, choose which category you're in. If you're from India, then this is the refund policy, and this is, you get all the information here. I'm not going to go through it. Next question, please.
Yes. Many students are asking this. Is there transportation facility, hostel facilities? If you can cover that.
Yeah. So basically, we have a number of, uh, if you see here on this map, yeah, can you see it?
Yeah.
So all those, we don't have a particular hostel at the moment, but at what we do have are a number of paying guests. So as you can see below, if you go to campus and if you go to housing, you will get information about different paying guest accommodations which have been vetted by the institute and uh, you know whose uh, the owners of who run the people who run uh, uh, these PGs are in constant contact um, with the administration, and you would get information about the owner. You'd get about the thing. You can find out what amenities are there for each PG and the tariff and what are the spaces available and what are the house rules and the contact number for them. So, but we don't have a hostel, but we have these paying guest accommodations where people can think, and there is a license. They look after your laundry. They bring food to the campus for lunch. They if you're ill or something, they will take care of you. They will inform your parents. They will also license with the administration and the wellness department in Srishti so that you're taken care of. So that's the way we do it. For people who want to stay in, who are from Bangalore and who want to stay at home, there are buses that ply between the college and uh, I think there's a bus to Bangalore Club, there's a bus to Indranagar, there's another bus that. So there are a number of routes, a few routes where you can pay a certain amount and use the bus, and it would bring you into college early morning and take you in the evening by 5. But do let me tell you that design colleges, art and design colleges, is not a 9 to 5 bank job sort of a thing. Even banks don't work 9 to 5 now. So there might be a group assignment where you have to work with 3 people. So you might stay over, or I mean, sometimes we would try to arrange 3 students from the city so you could meet in the city. Um, but you choose whichever is comfortable. Both options are there. There are buses that are arranged to commute from the city into Yalanka, and there is this network of paying guest accommodations where you can stay.
All right. We'll take one or two last questions from Mekala Subramanian. Are there any exchange programs in the professional program? Exchange,
Yeah,
so international education. Yeah.
yeah, there are definitely a lot of exchange programs, and they are usually given by academic merit, uh, and they happen at different times. I think it's definitely not in the first, and I don't think in the second. I think it's usually in the third year that students go. We have a huge number of MOUs with different organizations right across the world, and constantly our students not only go, but we also receive a lot of students from different countries who come to take a semester at Srishti.
All right. Um, and the final question, there are a lot more questions, but I think we are exceeded our time. So just one final question from Sridula Balaji. Um, if someone is on waitlist 01, what is the chances? So how does the waitlist work? And if you can elaborate on this, number one, how does it work? What are the chances of a student on, say, within waitlist 1 or waitlist 10 to get into that particular program? And possibly, if there are seats, if students in this round, in the previous round, are on waitlist, what are the chances for a student applying in the next
As I said, that if a student has applied for one round, he cannot reapply for another round, even if he is reapplying for a course that he didn't apply for in the first round. So there is only one chance. You can only apply in one round, but in that one round, you can apply for as many courses as you want. Okay? Uh, the wait list will be released. There will be a wait list date. If you look at the admissions timeline, if you go to the admission timeline, it will tell you, okay, so now for the first round that just happened, the results were announced yesterday. Applicants need to pay their part 1 fees by the 13th and the part 2 fees by the 20th, and the wait list will be announced on 15th. Okay, so once we know how many people have paid in and how many vacancies are available, we would open it out. But it's very hard to predict whether a wait list will be cleared or not. So you need to take. Of course, if your waitlist number is 01, your chances are better than 10 or 20. But yeah,
So
but
yeah, so actually to build up on that, I was not saying that a student who's applied once wants to apply again. I was saying if currently, say for the industrial arts and design practices, if currently the students are on waitlist and
okay.
another student wants to apply in the next round, do you think they can? I mean, so obviously this would be full up, right? So the chances of getting into industrial arts and design practices in the next round of admissions would be tougher, right?
It would probably get tougher because we would reach a maximum. So, uh, for whoever we have sent out an admission letter, if they don't apply and they choose another place, or they find it inconvenient to come to Bangalore for whatever reason, and then the wait list gets cleared, there still can be a possibility that it that particular course will open in for the next round, but maybe it might not open for the third round. So
Or
it's really a fluid sort of a situation, and very hard to give a concrete answer to that.
fantastic. Okay, right. So more questions coming in, but I'm sorry we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Professor Michael Joseph. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Yeah.
If
What we
if
could do is that, like, about how many questions are pending?
There are many. I mean, there's many questions regarding the difference in different electives or different streams. So for that, I've asked people to probably check the website, and if they still don't have clarity, they can connect with you by email, and maybe you could redirect them to somebody, to the right
Yeah.
person who can.
Preferably, if they could go straight to the course that they want an inquiry about, that would save me a lot of trouble in terms of answering emails.
Okay.
But if it is beyond a course, then please do get in touch. I think there is also a helpline, but that's more for there is must be a help desk number somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it must be there. It must be under the contacts. So I could probably share that helpline number where you could call and clarify, or you could write to the course coordinator. As I showed you, on each course there is a course coordinator. If it is something beyond the course and about the institution, you could please do write to me. And yeah,
All right.
and if
And
there are some that you want to compile and send me, Dion, you could compile and I could try and answer them and reply to you on email, and you could share it with all the students.
all right, all right. So what we'll do is, I think, what we'll do is when you have the subject-wise webinars, right? Not the
Yeah,
subject-wise, the stream-wise webinars. I think
course
that will be
wise.
shared. Yeah, course-wise webinars. I think that can be
That would be
shared with
much
all
more
the students.
focused. Today I've just given a very general overview.
And that was brilliant. Okay, I think it's been a pleasure having you on here, and thank you so much for being patient and answering all the questions, Professor Michael. All right,
Thank you.
all
It's
right.
been great,
Thanks.
and everybody take care and stay safe, and let's get out of this together. Let's hope things change and you can come over and visit us.
All right, all right. Thanks a lot. Okay, take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye. I'm leaving